Today we're going to learn some basic techniques to make beautiful roses, how to color Italian meringue, and I'll give you tips, tricks, and solutions to common issues when making this extra firm Italian meringue. First, divide the Italian meringue into several bowls depending on the colors you want to achieve. I recommend using gel food coloring for the best results. I use gel colorings from 3 different brands to show you how well they work. They don't alter the texture of the meringue at all, it remains just as firm and perfect. To achieve a lighter or stronger tone, it depends on the amount of coloring you add. The gel colorings I use are strong and high quality, but even so, if you're looking for a strong red or black tone, you'll need to add a lot of coloring to achieve it. For a dark green tone, I had to add green coloring several times plus a drop of black coloring. In the 19th century, Italian meringue was more than just a delicious dessert component, it was a symbol of refinement and status. Sugar, a luxury item during that era, was expensive and not readily available to the general population. The ability to create desserts featuring Italian meringue demonstrated both access to this prized ingredient and the skill to use it. The intricate designs and decorations made possible by Italian meringue were often showcased at lavish banquets and royal gatherings. To make the roses, I'm going to use piping tips from different brands, large and small. This is piping tip number 128 for making large roses. This is a curved petal piping tip, number 874, which is great for making beautiful large roses. Here I have 2 almost identical piping tips from different brands but with the same number, 125. These 2 tips are also identical, one without a number, bought from AliExpress, and the other is number 123. Next, we have leaf piping tips, numbers 68 and 113. Here I'm showing you rice cones also bought from AliExpress, which are very useful for forming the roses along with this decorating stand or nail. To attach the piping tip to the piping bag, do it this way: slide the tip inside the bag until it fits and cut the tip of the piping bag. Place the piping bag in a tall glass, folding the edges over the glass for easier filling. Now you can add the meringue by the spoonful. Close the piping bag with a kitchen clip and set it aside for now. Repeat the same steps with the other piping tips. Let's start forming the roses. Place a bit of meringue on the decorating nail and attach the rice cone. Start forming the rose. When decorating, pay attention to the speed and pressure. Beginners often decorate slowly at first, which can create an uneven look. Pressure is also important. Too much pressure will deform the decoration, and too little will make your work look shaky. Once you feel comfortable, this will improve, so don't worry. Practice as many times as needed. They say practice makes perfect. While you watch, enjoy, and learn how to decorate with these piping tips, I'll talk about potential issues you might face when making this extra firm Italian meringue. If the meringue holds its peak but starts to collapse when decorating, it might be due to underbeating or excessive humidity in the environment. Both can cause the meringue to soften. If the meringue is sticky and doesn't smooth out well, it could be because the sugar syrup has too much sugar relative to the egg whites or if the syrup was overcooked. This also happens if the egg white quantity is higher than the recommended amount or if the meringue wasn't whipped enough to become creamy, shiny, and extra firm. If the meringue separates and releases liquid after resting, this happens when the egg whites were overbeaten before adding the syrup was not at the right consistency, or the syrup was added too quickly. It can also happen if the meringue wasn't whipped enough after combining the ingredients. This is how beautifully perfect and well-defined decorations look with this extra firm Italian meringue. I encourage you to make this recipe without fear. Italian meringue is deeply rooted in European culinary history and is thought to have been created in Italy during the 17th century. It gained widespread recognition when François Machelot, a French chef serving aristocrats, included a recipe for meringue in his groundbreaking cookbook, Le Cuisinier Royal et Bourgeois in 1691. This marked the first recorded instance of meringue in French cuisine, but the technique itself is believed to have already been practiced in Italy and Switzerland. The name Italian meringue distinguishes this method of preparation from others like French and Swiss meringue. Italy's love for pastries and desserts likely spurred the refinement of the technique, especially for creating stable foams that could hold elaborate shapes for extended periods. This stability made Italian meringue ideal for constructing sophisticated decorations and for use in ornate cakes and pastries. Interestingly, the meringue's exact invention remains somewhat of a mystery, as various forms of beaten egg whites with sugar existed across Europe. However, Italy's tradition of combining culinary precision with artistic presentation likely led to the development of the specific hot syrup method that sets Italian meringue apart. It wasn't until the 18th and 19th centuries that Italian meringue became a cornerstone of pastry making across Europe, influencing countless recipes in both savory and sweet kitchens. Today, it continues to symbolize the fusion of science and artistry in baking, with its roots proudly tied to Italian ingenuity. I want to show you how this meringue and decoration look after 3 days in the fridge. The colors didn't change at all. I stored it in the fridge just like this, uncovered, on a plate. The only difference is that it dried out a bit, which is normal. You can see there's no liquid on the plate. The Italian meringue is perfect. Italian meringue stands out among its counterparts due to its remarkable resistance to humidity. While French meringue tends to weep or soften in damp conditions, Italian meringue remains resilient because the sugar syrup used in its preparation stabilizes the proteins in the egg whites. This makes it a favorite for bakers in tropical or coastal regions, where high humidity often causes issues with other types of meringue. The syrup's temperature during the cooking process, 118 degrees Celsius, 245 degrees Fahrenheit, creates a unique texture that is less likely to absorb moisture from the surrounding air. This characteristic is particularly valuable when making intricate decorations or desserts that need to maintain their shape over time. In hot climates, Italian meringue is often preferred for desserts like tarts, mousses, and pavlovas, as it doesn't collapse as easily as French meringue under warm conditions. For those who still don't know how to make Italian meringue, here's the recipe I use. Add 300 g, 1½ cups, of sugar to a saucepan with 125 milliliters, half a cup, of water. Separately, in a bowl, add 150 g, about 4 large egg whites, and 2 packets of vanilla sugar, 8 g each, or 1 teaspoon of regular sugar and a bit of vanilla extract as a substitute. Set a timer, as in many of my tutorials, to help you with the timing for each step. Italian meringue requires boiling the syrup on medium-low heat in one pan while beating the egg whites in another bowl. If you have a thermometer, the ideal syrup temperature is 118 degrees Celsius 245 degrees Fahrenheit. Without a thermometer, you can tell the syrup is ready when it starts bubbling, which takes about 7 minutes for this amount. Turn off the heat and add a teaspoon of lemon-flavored fruit salt, or replace it with a teaspoon of lemon juice or vinegar. Mix the fruit salt with the hot syrup and slowly pour it into the whipped egg whites while continuing to beat. Using a professional mixer makes this step easier, but I like to demonstrate using a regular, inexpensive hand mixer to show everyone can achieve an extra firm, shiny, and delicious meringue. Italian meringue was especially admired in France and England, where it became a staple of haute cuisine. Famous pastry chefs of the time, such as Marie-Antoine Carême, used it to craft architectural masterpieces, including towering croquembouches and multi-tiered cakes. After 13 minutes of whipping, you'll have a firm and shiny meringue, but if you whip for 2 more minutes, you'll achieve an extra firm texture. Notice how it clings to the mixer blades, it's incredibly firm. It's still warm, which is perfect for decorating cakes or using piping tips for various designs. This meringue holds up very well at room temperature in any climate. It's the most economical, well-known, and widely used cream in baking worldwide. It also stores well in the fridge for 4 days. Cake decorations stay intact without collapsing, melting, or changing. Leftover meringue can be stored in an airtight container or even frozen for up to a month. The meringue's ability to hold its shape for days was a game changer, allowing chefs to experiment with more ambitious designs. Even as sugar became more accessible in the 20th century, Italian meringue retained its reputation as an elegant and professional technique. To this day, it is associated with high-quality desserts and the skill of a trained pastry chef, making it a timeless representation of sophistication in the culinary world. Here's a tip for creating impressive, unique roses. Use piping tip number 125, or a similar petal tip in a larger or smaller size. Paint a thin line of gel food coloring, like wine red or your preferred color, along the thinner edge of the piping tip using a skewer. Fill the piping bag with meringue, and you'll see it doesn't change the texture, it remains firm and perfect. Now, I'll show you my easy method for making roses. You'll need a decorating nail, an essential and accessible tool available at baking supply stores along with piping tips. Add a bit of Italian meringue to the nail to form the center of the rose. Cover the center with a ribbon of meringue, wrapping it 2 or 3 times, and then start forming the petals. Keep the thick part of the piping tip down to create beautiful white roses with red edges. With this amount of Italian meringue, you can cover a cake 15 to 18 centimeters, 6 to 7 inches, in diameter and 10 centimeters, 4 inches, tall, plus make 3 to 5 roses and some small decorations. Thank you so much for your support. Remember to subscribe to my channel for more frosting recipes. See you soon.